Bertha and Phyllis, and apparently pop country music.
Pop country.
Tonight we have a special guest, though. I'd like to introduce y'all to, what do we name her? Loretta.
Hit the subscribe button.
So the other thing I would like to say is that we will not always share our videos to Facebook due to their content and some restrictions and stuff that need to be put on it. So
some of them are kind of risque.
So yeah, subscribe. That way you get our latest videos. So for
tonight we have Sarah Loretti.
So there is not a single person on earth who is more socially awkward than Loretta.
Son, what else can I say? You can blame it on the Hank and the Drankins. They made me this way. Drankins, they made me this way. Oh, your dog's about to get pizza. I love these dogs.
First, I have to pause the video because my husband needs us to look at what happens when you put moonshine on a fire.
Moonshine on a fire. Meth Mont.
Hey! Stop!
Stop. Gold right here.
So, high school is very different than probably even since your oldest was in high school, because it's very different from my oldest to her in high school.
Yes.
And different between the girls and the boys is crazy.
Like now it's nothing for a girl to be with a girl or a guy to be with a guy and then be with a girl again.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Would you say that it's kind of like a there's certain groups of people? So like, are there popular girls or the it girls that are lesbian, gay,
just whatever
it is? No.
Not that I know of, no.
So is there like a certain, do those type of kids like kind of group together?
What do you mean, like, what do you mean?
So do you find that...
you know how like the athletes stick together with the athletes and like the cheerleaders stick together with the cheerleaders. So like if you're of the same sexual orientation, you kind of hang out with those of like-minded sexual orientation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we were.
Unless you're gay as a man, then you're going to be hanging out with
the girls.
The popular girls.
Really? So
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when I went to school, like in high school, there was maybe one gay male who was openly, like, you knew he was gay. Of course, there was the ones that everyone questioned.
Yeah.
But there was, like, one gay male that you knew who was gay. And then there was maybe 2 or 3 females that were openly gay. There was one kid that I would say that under today's terms would be considered transgender. And it was solely because I to this day do not know who they are, you know, what they are, what their pronouns are, whatever. I looked them up on Facebook.
Right.
Just because we used to always ride the bus together. So I think about you if you're watching, because they were picked on.
Aw. You know, you shouldn't be picked on because you love differently. I mean, that's just...
So it wasn't even about relationships. It was, they dressed very neutral. Everything was very neutral.
Androgynously.
Okay, so...
There we go. That's weird.
But back then, there really wasn't a term. And transgender was not like a household term that people knew. So for them, I remember like being young. I never knew. I never knew if they were male or female.
Yeah.
Or what their sexual preference was or anything else. And I can remember those kids on the bus talking about wanting to follow them into the bathroom to see what was in their pants.
Oh my God.
And for me, I just remember having like this moment of being like, what does it matter?
Right.
Who cares what's in
Who
their
cares?
pants? Like to me it was, and I don't even remember their name, but it was even a very neutral name. You know, say something like
John. Bobby.
Yeah.
Sam.
Dan.
Sam's a very gender neutral name.
Jesse.
Oh, you're talking gender neutral. I'm saying you're just naming names. I thought you meant like plain, like
no, it was a very
average name.
A very gender neutral name. I don't. But it made me think. Do you remember on Saturday Night Live? There was Pat.
Yeah.
So Pat was in today's term, I guess, would be transgender.
Yeah.
Or are you looking for a non-binary?
Or non-binary.
Non-binary.
Non-binary is probably the more correct term. So this is where you come into play because you were way more open, knowledgeable, and everything in that area than what we are. And not because we're closed-minded, but because we just didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
You know, gay,
right.
lesbian, transgender,
when I was
things
in school,
like that was
when I was
not.
in school in the early '90s, no one was open.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
No one. But I mean, you always knew there were certain.
Yeah, like we had the one boy, the girl that I'm going to assume was maybe non-binary or whatever the terminology is there, and then there was like two girls that were openly lesbian. That wasn't just, haha, look at me, but actual lesbian. However, you go to school with a lot of people who are gay or transgender or what? Do they get picked on?
Not as much as you think. There will be people who call them, you know,
really ugly names. Yeah.
Really ugly names for just, you know,
and
being who they are.
That's just wrong. I mean, so what? Who cares? I mean, why should you get picked on because you love someone differently than somebody else? I mean,
I think because there's such like confusion and stigma around it all.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you don't choose who you love. You don't choose who you're attracted to.
I agree.
It just kind of happens. It's just kind of natural and it just kind of evolves. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, they feel guilt, shame.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Hurt, and they shouldn't feel that way because, I mean.
Yeah, so I also think that even though kids are experiencing it through TV and music and things like that a lot more, but parents, it's whatever their ideology is, whatever their opinion is of it, then that's going to be what's in the household.
Yeah.
Especially living where we do in the South, there is a lot of closed-minded, very, I don't like to group people together. I feel like labels are for soup cans, but
yeah,
very closed-minded, you know, people, and
Ignorance.
They're not preparing their children for the world that we live in now because it's, oh, this is wrong. It was
right. Yeah, it's.
And even if you want to believe that, even if you want
You're going to hell.
Right, so even if that's your thought, that's not the world that your child lives in now.
Right. Yeah. And if you love your child.
Right, but you're the parents are going to go to school with kids that are, you know, gay or transgender, non-binary, lesbian.
All different walks of life.
All different walks, and they're not being prepared for it. So I think those are the kids that you probably find that are picking on those groups of kids.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm friends with most of them. Like, most of them, they kind of, because I kind of fit almost everywhere.
Right.
I have friends
in all groups.
Yeah.
Right. So, transgender. I think there's a big difference, and I hate that lots of kids are getting the label of being transgender when they not necessarily know who they are yet.
Right.
And I always use me as an example in this because growing up, I was tomboy. You never hear the term tomboy.
Right.
So for me, I was a tomboy. I hated anything that had to do with being a girl. I wouldn't wear girl clothes. You know, and it wasn't even about.
Sorry.
I know, I like this song too. I remember her bopping too.
So for me, I feel like if you're transgender, it's not about how you dress, whatever. It's being uncomfortable in the body that you have.
So you were picked on for being a tomboy.
Yeah, I was picked on quite a bit for being a tomboy, but I was okay with, like, I knew I was a girl at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to have to be a girl.
Right.
I didn't want to wear girl clothes. I would have rather been running in my underwear through the woods with my BB gun strapped to my back, shooting squirrels.
That's how I was.
Ask my mom; she'll
Pew,
tell
pew.
you.
Pew, pew.
You know, when my sister was inside with my mom or my grandma, and they were learning to sew and cook, I was with my dad learning to rebuild VCRs.
How's that working for you now, though?
Not real good, okay, y'all. I need that market to come back.
That's when you learn.
Hey,
to
hold
be
on.
Netflix.
Tell her I need a VCR to watch the last Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl win. Remember, y'all? Huh.
Yeah. So I think like a lot of kids, by other kids, are getting called non-binary, transgender, or whatever when they're just tomboys, or what would be the term you would use for, or feminine males? What's what? Because if I was a tom girl or a tomboy, what would you call a male who was girly?
My day, they went, excuse me, I do not, this is not the term I would use, but they would call him a sissy.
A sissy?
Yeah, that is not a term I would use. I wouldn't say that, but.
I don't know. Because now when you see a tomboy girl, it would just be, oh, she's just masculine. I guess
Right.
that's what you would say with the boy. They're like, oh, he's just feminine. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're transgender. It's just like how I tend to have masculine tendencies, but I'm also still very feminine.
Right. So help me understand. If you are non-binary, that means that you do not associate with the male or female?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
I'm so sorry. I love this song. I'm sorry. I'm listening. Go ahead.
It's okay. Most people who identify with the term non-binary typically don't really feel comfortable with being a girl, and they don't necessarily feel comfortable with being a boy. So most of the time, they like that sweet in between.
But when you say they
That's
feel
understandable.
uncomfortable, that's the part. Do they feel uncomfortable with like male products and female products, like pink, blue shirts, clothing, toys, underwear, or is it they're uncomfortable with their bodies?
It can be both. A lot of times it is they're uncomfortable with the way that they present, because most people don't want to present female or male, they just want to present androgynously. I think that's how you say that.
Androgynously, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's
And-
like I went to a school with a guy who used to wear tutus and combat boots.
Right.
And he got made fun of, but I mean, he rocked out. I mean, he. Because then look, there comes Axl Rose wearing his kilt. And then guess who didn't? Well, I mean, of course he was wearing a tutu, but still, you know. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny because if you're famous, it's okay. It's more socially acceptable if you're famous or rich or, you know what I mean?
He was.
She's like,
He was imitating Marilyn Manson, because Marilyn Manson at the time, it just came out, and you know, he would wear the tutus, combat boots. I mean, he
Right.
was like very androgynous. There we go.
It's a fun word
Oh,
to say.
here.
This is Loretta, aka Sarah. Oh, wait, I was wrong. Hold on.
Drown your memory. Maybe you ain't worth the whiskey. Most of these people have already heard my singing before, so they're used to. What the hell? There you go, Terminator.
They're leaves. It's not even like it's fine.
I'll
I
be
got mine.
back. You
So
know,
yours remind me of like very groovy
Janis
stuff.
Joplin.
Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin-ish, yes.
Do you know any Janis Joplin?
Janis
Come on,
Joplin.
one time. One time.
No!
Do me a favor.
Yes.
Don't listen to her. Don't
You
do it.
have to play Janis Joplin.
No!
Okay, I got me and Bobby McGee on here. Hey, we like me and Bobby McGee.
So Sarah, believe it or not, has a beautiful voice. Like, beautiful. And I constantly try to get her to sing Janis Joplin. So for like 3 weeks, I played this song, I mean, every time, just repeatedly, over and over again, trying to get her to sing it. To the point that Sarah hates to hear this song.
And I hate the pink version too, because
That's your daddy.
That's my dad.
Come on. Everyone, microphone.
I got one in my mouth. Near as faded as my jeans.
I can't sit through your tune.
Bobby thumbed the diesel down just before we walked all the way to New Orleans. I pulled my phone and my dirty red bandana. Good enough for me and my Bobby, yeah. The thing you done,
Yeah, Bobby, baby, kept me from the cold.
see? But you said what one day,
I'm not really singing it because I'm nervous.
let him slip away.
I can't sing the lyrics.
And I'm looking for that home, and I hope he finds it. And I'll trade all my tomorrows for one single yesterday. To be holding Bobby's freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And nothing, and that's all that Bobby left me. There you go, baby, sing it. I don't know the lyrics. When it sang the blues, feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby.